So we're going to talk about Kitty Payne next month, July 23rd. And I'm going to just pass this around. If you have a phone, snap a picture of that QR code. That's a 12-minute video on African American history that you don't know about of Gettysburg. It hasn't been taught to you because of institutional racism, things that have just been brushed under the rug. So 12-minute video, I'll pass these around. I'll put one in every row. Pass them over. You can keep them if you want. These are all the extras. Snap a picture of that. Good evening. We will reward the people who are on time, and we'll get this thing going. Sound okay back there? Sound good? All right. Well, thank you for joining me on this beautiful night. And you could be anywhere, but you're here. So I'm going to hope to give you something that's memorable, something that's educational, entertaining, and enlightening, the 3 E's. So I want you to sit back and absorb all this, and I hope that I spur you for more education on this subject. When was the Battle of Gettysburg? Well, what happened on June 26th? The rebels first invaded. Did you know there was a requisition in Gettysburg? You remember what happened at Chambersburg and who did it? McCauslin, right? Tiger John McCauslin. My name's McCauslin, but it's the same name. And I do want to find out if there's any relation to my ex-husband's family by that bad rebel. Requisition in Chambersburg, didn't fill it, town was burned. Requisition in Gettysburg, didn't fill it, town was not burned. So we were lucky. I was in Front Row, Virginia, and speaking to a group down there, and they mentioned, I said, oh, I love your town, it's so nice. I biked around the town today before I came in and took in all the nice buildings, and this lady went, should have seen it before the Yankees burned all our buildings down. And I was like, oh, Dorothy, you're not in Kansas anymore. So a different perspective. And it's interesting, this program that I give, when I would give this program in the North, I would hear emotion of people. And when I gave this program in the South, instead of, oh, I would hear little chuckles. So you'll see, and I'm going to share this with you. I want to start this by not just talking about my relative. I'm going to hope to find some of yours. So I've got the names. So this is about George Washington Sandoe. I wanted to tell you how I got into this. I was on a boring business dinner at her tavern, and they were talking business. It wasn't anything to do with me. And I just thought, well, I'm going to go to the restroom. And I saw some books and a nice chair and a lamp. So I picked up a book. And the book was Days of Darkness by William G. Williams. And I put my fingers in that book and opened it. And I am not lying. It said, they brought in the body of George W. Sandoe. My name was Deb Sandoe McCauslin. I'm like, who's this guy? And why don't I know about him? So I started going to historical society meetings, and I knew Tim Smith's face from documentaries, and Bill Frazanito, because I'm a PBS watcher, and I love all those Civil War documentaries. And I went to the Historical Society, and then I found out where they drank beer. And I went to the Reliance Mine every third night when Frazanito was there and bought them beer and asked them questions. And they told me where George's picture was. That was a story for another day, that I had to find the box and shelf number to the national park to let them show me the daguerreotype by calling Angie Eckert. The Park Service said they didn't have his daguerreotype, and I knew they did. I had to find the box and shelf number and tell them, and then they let my mother and father and I come in, and there was just tension in the room. There was rudeness. I don't know why. I didn't get it. We were the family of the first soldier killed at Gettysburg. And I thought that was pretty cool. It's a dubious honor. I have uncles that have a hunting camp, and they say whenever they miss a buck up there, they always get compared to that same George Sandoe. He fired a shot and missed too. So I'm going to tell you the story of June 26th. I want to start, though, by telling you the names of these people that I'm talking about in these units. So they were volunteers for 2 weeks in September of 62. What happened in September of 1862 that might affect people in Adams County? Antietam, it isn't far. Sharpsburg, Maryland, not far at all. So here are the people who volunteered in Robert Bell's Independent Cavalry. Captain A. Hill McCreary, Lieutenant Robert Bell, Second Lieutenant Isaiah Orr, as in Orr, Tana, James Mickley, John Gwynn, Henry Lott, Washington Witherow, Adam Black. Corporals were William Orr, Cornelius Lott, George Hartzell, Rush Bigham, D. Witherow Horner, Ephraim Whistler, George Hankey, Isaac Hankey, David Hartzell, Simon Hayner, John Herring, Silas Horner, Theodore Horner, William Lott, Josephus Mills, William McCullough, Robert McElhenney, Jacob McElhenney, James Robert, Ephraim Reaver, George W. Sandoe, John Sparrow, David Sterner, A.F. Stockstrager, George Stover, Isaiah Schultz, John Tawney, John Tate, William Walker, John Witherow, Henry Wintrode, Andrew Weichert, William Young, George Young. Volunteers, 2 weeks in September of 62. Then, when the rebels got close and they were mustered in June 23rd, it was Captain Robert Bell, First Lieutenant James Mickley, Second Lieutenant Henry Lott, First Sergeant H. Paxton Bigham, Sergeants Cornelius Fulweiler, Robert McElhenney, Adam Black, Washington Witherow, Corporals Thomas King, William Crooks, John Young, William Reynolds, Alexander Bucher, Isaac Stockslager, J. Harvey Cobean, Abraham King. Buglers were Henry Carr, William McCreary, Blacksmith, Barnhart Hollaball, Privates, Samuel Allison, Ephraim Bear, Walter J. Beamer, I missed something here, Isaac Bucher, John Bueller, Calvin Bushy, William Carpenter, Philip Cashman, Michael Cassatt, as in the French Impressionist. Her family was from here. Sorry, I lost my place. Okay, let me keep going. Chamberlain, Absalom Conrad, Thomas Culbertson, John Comer, Miller DeGroft, William Dixon, David Eckert, William Freeman, Isaac Fritz, James Holsworth, Daniel Hoover, Witherow Horner, Theodore Horner, Josiah Lauer, William Mickley, Josephus Mills, Samuel Musselman, Henry Myers, Samuel McAllister, John McCreary, Robert McCreary, Luther M. Donald, David McGugan, Robert McElhenney, Isaiah Orr, John Peters, James Rebert, Ephraim Reaver, Fratz Rothenbacher, George Washington Sandoe, George Scott, Samuel Sherman, George Shriver, Louis Shriver, Sam Shaw, John Schultz, Adam Snyder, Philip Snyder, John Tate, William Toot, John J. Wade, William Walker, John Weichert, William White, James Wilson, Edward Wintrode, David Young, George Young. Anybody here a relative? You did. You did. You did? You did? You did? Did you know that before you got here? Is that new? All right. Well, you can learn more about these people. Now I'm going to tell you what happened to these folks. All right, so let's get rolling. Let me figure out my pointer. What happened in Gettysburg on June 23? The Rebs had complete control of this town. Now you see, and there's prisoners there. So George Washington Sandoe was the first to fall at Gettysburg. He died while performing his duties in Captain Robert Bell's Independent Cavalry Company B. History lovers are quick to remember what happened July 1, 2, and 3, but not aware of what happened when Confederate troops first appeared in Gettysburg Friday, June 26. Citizens of Gettysburg and some of the residents and surrounding communities were terrorized at the sightings of those dreaded Rebs. For days, they'd been hearing reports the rebels north of the Mason-Dixon line. George Washington Sandoe fell victim to the rebel bullet and died instantly near the Rock Creek at McAllister Field. George lived a few miles south on that same creek. McAllister Field was owned by James McAllister, a miller. McAllister was reportedly an Underground Railroad agent. In 1836, there was an anti-slavery society meeting there. Can you imagine? They talked about slavery. They could not fix this. Then there's a war, and the first deceased soldier is right at that location, at McAllister's Mill. I think that's pretty ironic. Pretty ironic, where people found their freedom, their first blood was shed of a Union soldier here at Gettysburg. And that's a big debate for the historians, who was the first. So George Washington Sandoe had limited military experience, probably used his own horse, his own pistol, might have been in uniform, might not have been, I'm not sure about that. Shot in the back, basically killed for his horse. Killed by rebel cavalry unit under Colonel Elijah V. White, 35th Virginia Cavalry. They were called the Comanches. Why? Because they came in screaming, yelling, firing pistols, and brandishing sabers. Bunch of crazy people. And they scared the women, especially, to death. And I'm going to read their diaries to you. So that's what it was like. Now, what is my relation to George? I'm Debra. Here's my sister, Melissa. Say hi to my sister. Not a history lover, so it may snow when we go outside. And my dad was Cyric, as she named her son Cyric after my dad. And our grandfather was James, a fruit grower on Yellow Hill. And I spent a lot of time up there. And Ralph was his father. Not Junie, not Ralph at the packing house in Sandoe's Fruit Market. That was Junie, Ralph Jr. Fireball, right? He's crazy Junie. And I know, I'm high-strung just like him. And it kind of worries me. And then Henry is his dad. David and Edwin were brothers. And George was the son of Edwin. Now, Edwin Sandoe died in 1859, leaving his wife as head of the household. So I found them in the census, and it shows Rebecca's 38-year-old female, 1860. George is 17. He's got a brother, John, and a sister, Elizabeth. So that's the household in 1860. Edwin Sandoe died October 59, and George marries, and his mother remarries. And I have that wedding account in here. That was married on the 19th of February by Reverend L.T. Williams, Mr. George Sandoe, to Anna Caskey, Anna or Diana of Cumberland Township. And right above it, I saw that of his mother, Mary's Mills, a neighbor named Mills. So anybody see this picture before? It's The Diamond by, I think, Brad Schmel, right? So this is the story of George. Mustered in the 23rd, dead by the 26th. Very short military career, was it not? But his wife got a pension. She got that whopping $10, $13 a month to live on after that, if she proved that she didn't remarry. So here are George's muster records. Does this have a highlighter on it? Oh, I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So here you go. So he was mustered in the 23rd, and he's killed at Gettysburg the 26th by the Rebs while on discharge of his duty. So what was his duty? A cavalry scout under Robert Bell. So they were using probably their own horses when they were in duty. So here's George. I got really lucky. Oh, I don't even remember how this happened. Anybody remember Hershey's Men's Shop here in Gettysburg? It was his wife. I can't even remember her name. Mildred Hershey. And she had told me she had a photo album of Rebecca Sandoe. And the photo album was velvet with some like ivory things on the front. Oh, it was gorgeous. And it was typical Civil War era photo album from a wedding. inside the picture of the bride, the groom, the parents. And that's how I got these rich pictures. And luckily, a cousin that works at Grafcom who digitalized these for me. Here's Brother John. He ends up in Lancaster, gets involved in newspapers. This is Elizabeth Cromer. She marries William Cromer. They live down on the Tawny Town Road, I do believe, near the Mount Joy Lutheran Church where they are buried. So here is the wedding picture. Frazanito gives me this one night, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Wow. Is that his sister? That's what I said to him. Because I saw that census record. His sister was a year younger. I'm like, so is that his sister? He goes, you don't hold your sister like that. In the Civil War, you didn't touch a woman in public like that. So his hand, see this hand up here, and this hand here, and what does she have on? Look at those gloves. Look at that. I think she's holding a hat. I think that's a little hat that she had on. Earrings. Girl's got some bling. I like it. So I think that's their wedding picture. And it was from their album. And this is the deer in the headlights picture. I mean, come on. Look at their eyes. Did they say, keep your eyes open really wide? But, this Abner Mills, I was looking at church and burial records. They had like 3 babies and they kept naming it the same thing, and then the baby would die. And then they'd have another one, name it the same thing, and then the baby would die. And I'm like, stop naming. But children died a lot back then. I think this is George. I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, it does look like him, doesn't it? It was in a Time Life book, full uniform. I mean, he's gussied up there. Saber. He's got, what do you call this thing? Saddlebag. It's a pretty fancy horse there too. What's going on? Like a plume on its head? So I'm not totally sold. I'd like more proof. I think it might be George, but I don't know. Am I doing the wrong one? Okay. So what was going on? So we knew those Rebs were coming, right? They had crossed the Potomac. And there's all kinds of books that I could read to you about this, but every other historian has done all that, right? You know about the thump, the chest, and the big men going across the field, yada, 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 yada. I don't think I'm going to do that tonight. But I'm going to read some newspaper accounts to you and what other people said. Real words. That's what I like, real words. Here's one by David Conover. David Conover was a young boy. This was published in 1905. A cavalryman came running up, leading a horse. I heard him say, "Here is the horse. I shot the rider. I'm sorry. I had to do it in self-defense. As no other person was known to have been shot that day, I've always believed he referred to Sandoe, and that was his horse." He talks about that they joined Bell's cavalry and the Home Guards. They left town the morning of, they went down to Bonneville Road, and they were not in uniforms, but had pistols. See, now why, how can he be in a uniform? But maybe it was before, I don't know. So they had uniforms, had pistols. When they reached Bonneville Bridge, they followed the advice of Bell. Every man take care of himself. They got routed back. It was not a good day in Gettysburg, June 26th. It wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. So that's one account that he gives. And what we read about in the newspaper. In the newspaper, it said, upon the rebel cavalry entering the town, they branched off into several streets. One squad hurried out Baltimore Street in pursuit of persons taking away horses. They caught several of them and took their horses. One rebel went down the turnpike as far as Nathaniel Leitner's, where he came upon 2 of Bell's cavalry. The rebel shot one of them, Mr. George Sandoe, killing him on the spot. There was probably shooting on both sides, as several shots were heard. Mr. Sandoe was an estimable young man, leaves a wife and many other relatives to mourn his early death. The body was removed to the home that same evening. Here's an account by Harvey Cobean, and he was serving there with George. June 26, I with several others was detailed for picket duty on the Chambersburg Pike. The rebels made their appearance first about 1 o'clock. We fell back as they advanced. That's not good. When we reached Gettysburg, the Rebs charged on us and and we retreated double quick to Hanover, took supper there and marched 3 miles out the York Road, slept in a barn about 3 hours, then continued our march to York on the 27th and also the Columbia the 28th, marched back to Wrightsville. Okay, so he's given his account. He lived, and then they went on and they went to Columbia and York after that. But George was shot, so he didn't make that journey. Why did George enlist? Why did he have to do it? He just got married. He was head of his mother's farm. Why did he do it? Well, there was a rousing courthouse speech on the courthouse steps. This one's a little hard to read. There was a meeting of citizens of Adams County was held at the courthouse Saturday morning, June 20th, to take consideration of the subject of placing the county in a state of military organization, to adapt measures in affecting an organization as would be deemed advisable, most advisable. The meeting was organized by George Arnold, Esquire, J.J. Schmidt, Vice President, things I can't read here. The object of the meeting, after which Major Haller, USA of General Couch's staff, made some remarks urging upon the citizens the necessity and duty of placing the county in a thorough state of military organization as possible. The auxiliary to that object suggested the appointment of the Committee of Safety, and people were appointed. Resolved, the Committee of Safety to General Couch and the Governor, the desire of the people of Adams County, that those citizens who shall organize in response to the call of the Governor for the present emergency shall be mustered in here and used in defense of the county. And they're very emphatic about that. So a company is raised. We read this in the newspaper. Company is formed. Following are the officers, a company of cavalry recruited in the county, Captain Robert Bell, Lieutenant James Mickley, Second Lieutenant Henry Lott Jr., Orderly P.H. Bigham. The company was accepted by the governor and sworn in to the United States service for 6 months. By Major Haller on Wednesday morning, the company is full and has been doing very effective service as scouts since the appearance of the enemy. The men have been performing the hardest kind of service, coming frequently in contact with the rebels, making narrow escapes, and bringing in valuable information. Pretty necessary. And here too, it talks about, this is the Adams Sentinel and General Advertiser. On Friday the 26th, a hostile force consisting of cavalry came into our town, going up to York and Carlisle. They remained all night, taking what they wanted, robbing the stores and dwellings of food and valuables, and leaving what was of no use to themselves. The surrender of the place, with $5,000 in gold and silver and other supplies of which they were in need, were haughtily demanded and manfully refused. Saturday, they passed east and left us little time in which to digest what they had furnished in the room of what they had stolen. Don't worry, Philadelphia city troops are coming to save the citizens of Adams County and Gettysburg. A very fine-looking company of cavalry arrived here on Sunday morning. This is the 23rd of June, a Gettysburg newspaper. So cavalry unit from Philadelphia came Sunday morning, proceeded immediately on duty on the roads towards Hagerstown and Chambersburg. They were equipped in the finest manner, and we understand they're paying their own expenses, determined to aid the state in every way to repel the vandal hordes who have invaded her borders. We regret to learn that one of their number was thrown from his horse in the darkness on Sunday night and seriously injured. He was taken back to Philadelphia. He fell off his horse. We trust he will soon be back. Major Haller of Couch's staff is there, superintending the organization of the militia and directing the affairs for the defense of the county. What did the people do? They buried their booze in the garden. They put their silver, they hid stuff. I mean, they knew the rebels were going to come and take their stuff. And guess what the rebels found? The booze in the garden. They said Elijah White's men were drinking, and it was observed that they were drunken. Elijah White was a preacher, by the way. I thought that was interesting, that his men got that way. So the newspaper talks about, and this is what people were reading. There's a very special account that I want to read here. Now, this is called the Invasion of the North. They were talking about cavalry at Fairfield between 50 and 100. A great battle will be fought. So this is the invasion of the North, and in this account, they talk about the Rebs obliging General Milroy to advance in Winchester, sent a large force over the Potomac River at Williamsport and Hancock. One division going to Cumberland, they took possession of Hagerstown. On Monday night of last week, a force of 850 cavalry and mounted infantry entered Chambersburg. They remained there till Wednesday afternoon. They left in great haste after taking drugs and goods from the stores, sometimes paying for that in Confederate money. They set fire to a warehouse, but the fire was extinguished by the citizens. They carried away with them some horses and quite a number of colored persons. So black people here read this, and they knew, oh, I'm getting out of here. These rebels are taking free blacks right off the street in broad daylight, and there is not much that can be done about that. And there are other reports about Negroes in tow. So this is definitely what, now, many blacks here in Gettysburg were born in the South where they weren't allowed to read. Literacy laws in Virginia and Maryland said Negroes could not be educated. And but they probably heard about it. And if someone knew them, they were probably telling them, guess what I read in the paper? You guys better skedaddle. Jean Odom, anybody remember Jean? Told me that her family's legend was that they fled to Yellow Hill. That the blacks of Gettysburg, some of them went to be with the blacks up there. Well, guess what else was up in Bendersville? The rebels, all over the place. You look at the damage claims, and the rebels were taking our farmers, horses, food, everything else. So now let's see what the ladies have to say about this encounter. Now here's Granville Howler. There's an image of him. I'm not going to talk about him a lot. Here's our Captain Robert Bell. I think he became a banker later, stayed here in the area. And here's kind of like the troop movement. This is one of Tim Smith's maps, I think, how they came through from around the Cashtown area, came into Gettysburg, and then they went east. And here's a picture of McAllister's Mill. There are Underground Railroad tours there, which I helped them start. So I hope if you're interested in the Underground Railroad, you'll take a Saturday to go see Bernie Mazer and the other volunteers there, to see near the area where George died, along the Rock Creek. We were on Dean Schultz's Lost Avenue tour, and it was incredible. The backside of Rock Creek. And you could see the ford and remnants of the mill. It was truly remarkable. Here's good old James McAllister. He had several sons in the Civil War. One was imprisoned. And he said, and an Underground Railroad agent. Let me tell you a real quick story about him. His mill had 2 floors, top floor, bottom floor. And it was said that one time he's on the top floor and a slave catcher came in. And the slave catcher was asking him a bunch of questions. You know, I have reason to believe you might be harboring somebody. What if you have a runaway here in your mill? Are you hiding anybody in here? And what would you say if I said, I think maybe you might be hiding somebody's runaway? McAllister said, you know what I'd say? I'd say, run, boys, run. And he stomped his cane on the floor because somebody down there was hearing, run, boys, run. And they didn't get caught. So we have documented McAllister's Mill. It's on the National Park Service, National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom. And that's a hard job. I've nominated 4 sites in the county with the help of Randy Harris. So, and I do give junior ranger badges on the Underground Railroad when I do my tours. So back to George. Jenny Wade. Now, her story, Tim Smith says, is not the best. So I'm not going to read it. Because she messed up. She said George was in the 21st PA. Well, no, he never was. Some of the men who were in Robert Bell's Independent Cavalry later attached to the 21st. And the 21st Cavalry erected a monument. And I thought too, I'm like, George was in the 21st. No, he never was. It wasn't even formed until after Gettysburg. So he couldn't have even been in it. But many of the men in Bell's cavalry attached to that. So Jenny Wade's story is that her little brother, you heard me say John Wade, John J. Wade, that was her little brother, and she was a seamstress. And she said his uniform was too big, and so she did her patriotic duty and altered his uniform and ran out to catch him out New York Road when he was leaving with the rest of his companions in Bell's cavalry. So there's Jenny Wade's story. But it was done in 1905, and there's a lot of other stuff that seems a little bit embellished. Now, we like diaries because that's right when it happened. Where is she? Oh, this one is so good. Sally Stewart. Boy, she's got a great story. Can anybody tell me her story real quick?
Which part?
A wounded soldier, she nursed him, married his brother, got pregnant, and then he died when she was pregnant.
You just told it.
A very, very sad story. So here's her diary. June 15th. The town is in all an uproar. Merchants are packing their goods and sending them off, and everyone shares in the confusion caused by the news. The rebels are coming. June 16th, last night, the darkies made such a racket up and down by our house that we could not sleep. You know who she means? Americans, the Negro community. And she lived near them. She was on High Street, Middle Street.
55 high.
Thank you very much. June 17th, the rebels are still coming. Another report that the rebels are coming set the town in a perfect uproar. The excitement was intense for a while, but it died down when it was found the report was false. I'm getting tired of all this consequent upon border life through the numerous reports, but they do not alarm me. On the contrary, I am sometimes quite amused by seeing the extremes to which people will go. I pity the poor darkies. They seem perfectly bewildered. Now, she added this, no, I'm not going to read that. June 18th, the rebels are coming. That again, is the latest. June 19th, the excitement is intense. Some of our boys from the 87th Pennsylvania Volunteers who were in the Battle of Winchester last Sunday came home today. Among them were Uncle William Culp and cousin David Myers and two other uncles and cousins. They knew nothing. The boys retreated, their ammunition gave out, and they made for home. Poor fellas. They've been on the road since Monday evening. Dear me! Exclamation point. What times! Exclamation point. All week I've been pretty busy and steady, but today I could no longer control myself, and I was out nearly all day. That means she wasn't doing her chores. She was out talking. She was out all day. Miss Cool and Collected, remember? Oh, it doesn't bother me. I'm not alarmed. Oh, yeah. June 19th, the excitement's in, oh, that's it. 20th, the excitement is still intense. Some cavalry from Philadelphia who are armed and equipped themselves came tonight. They are entirely and altogether volunteers. I don't think she sounds real safe by the Philadelphia city troops. June 21st, afternoon, the excitement grows worse than ever. I think it is about as bad as it can be. For the first time in more than 2 years, I have been alarmed and excited. The rebels have taken possession of Millerstown, which is,
Fairfield.
thank you, about 8 miles from here, rather Fairfield, which is its proper name. Evening, we had no preaching. Reverend Eisenberg has skedaddled. The town is pretty clear of darkies. They have nearly all left. I pity the poor creatures. Darkies of both sexes are skedaddling, and some of the white folks of the male sex. I'm glad I'm neither a man or a darky. The girls are not so much better off. Oh dear, I wish the excitement was over. And I apologize. I don't like to read things that are derogatory to anyone, so I'm sorry if that did offend anyone. But I think it's important to understand her words. She seems pretty upset by seeing them being perfectly bewildered. And here we are, June 22nd. Went to the stores, but there was little to be bought. They look quite desolate. June 23rd, about 3 o'clock, another excitement was gotten up. The rebels are coming, certainly. Nearly everybody looked for them, but they disappeared. They disappointed us once again. Can you believe she even says that? They disappointed us again. Like she wants them to come. Okay, get ready. About 25th, great deal of excitement. The Rebs are near, they say. They. Okay, here we go. June 26th. In rebeldom, period. About 4 o'clock, the long looked for rebels made their appearance in such a mean looking lot of men I never saw in all my life. They flew around after stray horses, and it was provoking to see them riding around doing just as they pleased. Several hundred cavalry came first, followed by several hundred infantry with their old red flag flying, and they were yelling like fiends. I am not afraid of them, and I did not believe they were coming as I stood on the corner until two of them rode by furiously brandishing their sabers and pointing pistols. At last, we have seen the rebels. Evening. How exasperating the thought that tonight we are under the control of, quote, armed traitors, quote. Two of them were at our door for about 2 hours talking to Father about the war and their Southern rights, etc. We talked to them as we would to anyone else. Father and I told them we were for the Union unconditionally. They were very reasonable, and our conversation was interesting. Thank you, Sally. Wasn't that good? And everybody knows Sally Seitz, Sally Thomas. She collected those diaries, found them at auctions. And because Sally wrote in every diary the same thing, and she opened it up and she's like, there's another one. And she bought it. She found several of them. And who's this? Tilly Pierce. Tilly Pierce. Tilly gave us her account. Tilly, at Gettysburg, what a girl saw and heard. True narrative of Tilly Pierce Allman. She shows concern for the colored folks. She was in class the 26th, and the teacher said, run home as quick as you can. She scarcely reached the door of her home when she saw the Rebs up the street. What a horrible sight. Clad almost in rags, shouting, firing revolvers right and left. They wanted horses, demanded flour, meat, whiskey, groceries, shoes, hats. They came back. They stole their family's horse, and her mother was appalled but gave them something to eat. They told Father to go see Colonel White about the horse that was stolen from them. Father went, but White said he heard that Father was a black abolitionist and that we had 2 sons in the Army. He came back without the horse. Later, we saw them riding our horse up and down the street. What is that family going to do without their horse now? And, that was a big deal. That's like stealing the family's car. And that meant, if you had a farm, that wasn't happening. The horse is gone. This. Anna Garlick. She lived at 323 South Baltimore Street. A number of people were trying to save their horses. They'd taken down the Baltimore Pike. Word came that the rebels were coming, and down the road more riders went, going as fast as the horses would go. And there was a mail carrier trying to save the mail. He dropped the bag in front of our house. The rebels later discovered the men had gone with the horses and gave chase down Baltimore Street. In their wild run down Baltimore Street, the Confederate riders spotted one of Bell's cavalry, Private George Sandoe. They caught him near his house, not really, south of the cemetery, and when Sandoe resisted, killed him on the spot. Sandoe was left where the pursuers found him, marked with the sad distinction of being the very first soldier to die at Gettysburg. She said it, but later historians disputed that. The Pennsylvania Campaign, when did it really start? If he's killed June 23rd, was it really the battle? June 26th, is that really the battle of Gettysburg? He is not on the Pennsylvania Monument, and it will never be added, because I tried. Because that monument says, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in honor of her sons who fought on this field, July 1, 2, 3. So your relatives may be on there, but mine who died the 26th of June will never be added to that. Some have been added, but they said that he would not qualify. So there's Anna Garlick. Who's this? Ken Burns. Isn't she sweet? That's Sarah Broadhead. She was really good with her pen. June 15th. Today we heard the rebels are crossing the river in heavy force and advancing in the state. No alarm was felt till Governor Curtin sent a telegram directing the people to move their stores as quickly as possible. This made us realize the fact that we were in some danger from the enemy, and some persons thinking the rebels were near became very much frightened. The report was a mistake. June 16th, the rebels are coming and burning as they go. June 20th, the report of today is the rebels are at Chambersburg and advancing on here. The refugees come in by the scores. Some say the rebels number from 20 to 30,000. Others that Lee's whole army is advancing this way. All day we have been very much excited. June 24th, as I expected, the rebels have several times within 2 or 3 miles, but they have not reached here yet. June 26th, it's a much bigger entry. Our militia passed through town this morning about 10 o'clock and encamped 3 miles to the west. They unpacked their baggage. A scout came in with a report which proved true. The enemy were very near. Our men had to retreat and get the best of the best way they could. About 200 were captured. 200 were captured. These are the people that are keeping them safe. The citizens safe, captured. The town was quiet after our men retreated about 2 o'clock when a report spread that the rebels were only 2 miles from town. No one believed this, for they had so often been reported as coming and had as often failed to appear, and little attention was now paid to the rumor. Then, however, the wagons of the militia came thundering through the street, and guard stated that they'd been chased back. Again, we began to realize that the report was a fact. They came with such horrid yells. It was enough to frighten us all to death. They were a miserable-looking lot. They wore all kinds of hats and caps, even heavy fur ones, and some were barefooted. The rebel band were playing Southern tunes in the diamond. I could not tell how bad I felt to hear them and to see the traitor's flag floating overhead. The humiliation was complete when I saw our men marching behind them, surrounded by guard. That was what you saw on Brad Schmill's artwork, some of that. So I got another account. This is one of my favorite. I don't think I have her. Elizabeth Master Thorne. Comes to America and somebody steals everything she brought. Said, they'll take your bags, and they took everything. But she her husband was a caregiver at Evergreen Cemetery, but he was away in battle. This is a heroine of Gettysburg, Elizabeth Thorne. With Howard by her side, she walked by his horse. Howard was on a horse. General Howard asked her to tell him how the roads laid out. She did it while pregnant, and then dug 100 graves in the first few days after the battle because he was away, and she was the caretaker of Evergreen Cemetery. And Brian Kennel paid a tribute to her by placing a monument there at Evergreen. The battle was on Wednesday, so Elizabeth Thorne. The battle was Wednesday, July 1st, but it was on Friday before that I first saw the rebels. As the rebels came to Gettysburg, we were all scared and wished for them to go. 6 came down the Baltimore Pike. Before they came into the cemetery, they fired off revolvers to scare the people. They chased the people out, and the men ran and jumped over fences. Then they came back. I was a piece away from the house when they rode in their horses to get a man who'd run away from town. When they rode into the cemetery, I was scared, and I was afraid that they fired after my mother. I fainted from fright, but finally reached the house. They could not catch the men. They came back soon enough. They said, we should not be afraid of them. They're not going to hurt us like the Yankees did their ladies. They rode around the house to the pavement in the window, asking for bread, butter, buttermilk. The biggest man must have been a high officer. My mother went and got all she had for them. And just then a rebel rode up the pike and had another horse behind his. The ones who were eating said to him, oh, you have another one. And the one who came up the pike said, yes, the blankety blank shot at me, but he did not hit me. And I shot at him and blowed him down like nothing. And I got his horse, and he lays down on the pike. And the man, we believe, who was shot was George Sandoe. So that's Elizabeth Thorne's account. So here's the requisition. Not much. Easy, right? Easy peasy. Yeah, we'll get that for you right away. 1,000 pairs of shoes. 500 hats. They didn't fill it. Early wanted it, didn't get it, didn't burn the house. This is a sketch by Charles Reed. I think he was a correspondent for a magazine or newspaper. Had a lot of these drawings. And Tim Smith told me that he had seen this, but this is the first Yankee shot at Gettysburg. He said it too. First Yankee shot. So I tried to talk about George. I want him to be remembered. I want local people who had relatives serving with him to know about that. And his story was in the Civil War Times. Terry Berger, I think, wrote that story for me. I knew Terry had an inn, so I said, Terry, I'm going to give you all my research. How about you do this story? And it's over there on the counter. So George Sandoe. Now there's, like I said, so many books that you can read about this. Here Come the Rebels by Nye and Willoughby Run. There's two over there. Here's one. I like this one. This is Jenkins. Which one is this? Cavalry at Gettysburg, Edward Longacre. And it talks about Early's advance and coming in here. But I just like this one thing. As soon as Early commenced the 26th, he directed French and White for the militia short-term volunteers to look for any militia short-term volunteers or gun-toting farmers who seemed to offer a resistance. I think that's George, gun-toting farmer. I mean, he really didn't have a lot of military experience, and he was just doing the best he could. So Bell's Cavalry, they did their thing. It wasn't a good day for the citizens of Gettysburg. But the rebels left, and they did take a lot of stuff with them. And a lot of people were really low. They didn't have the food to feed their family if somebody takes all the food that you had stored for your family. And taking the family's horse, that was pretty bad, to take that horse. And here's I had the image of the picture. My name is over there like on the side because I submitted the photo. But to me, it wasn't really about getting my name out there. It was getting his story out there and getting the events of what happened in Gettysburg on June 26th. It sounded like those people were pretty scared, didn't it? When you read their real words, it gives you a little bit of feeling about what would it really have been like to be here. And those rebels came. And then what would it have been like to be black and be living here and have to leave really quick, everything, everybody. And some never came back. They went to York, Lancaster, Chambersburg, Yellow Hill, and the population was forever changed. His stone at Mountjoy was replaced. The original is here in the back. I asked him to bring it out for tonight. He acted like I was crazy. He said, well, they brought it in on a forklift, Deb. And don't you have some big friends who can just go get it and bring it over? Okay, but I loved it. This is the old one. Honor to the brave. George Washington Sandoe. Isn't that corny? George Washington Sandoe. But that's what they did. And he's buried here at Mountjoy Lutheran Church. Now, there are two monuments to him. Anybody know where they are? Baltimore Pike, right across from the new Visitor Center. And this is the first one. This is beside the one that you're going to recognize when I advance the next slide, maybe. Did anybody swim at the Gettysburg Pool? Gettysburg Pool down on the Baltimore Pike? You remember it? It's no longer, but yeah, it's right across the street, right across the road from that. And be careful, there's a pull-off there, but Baltimore Pike is heavily traveled. And here's the one they put up like a year later. So George is mentioned on the back of that first one, and then they raised money and put another one up here beside it. So they're near each other. One you have to climb up on a rock by some guy's storage shed to read it, but this was dedicated in 1894. Oh, and I have the big, long speech, and I am not going to read it. But when I read it, I was like, oh my God. It just goes on and on, but it's so wordy. There was something about it that I did like. Just the way at the end, he won glory on the battlefield of Gettysburg. And by doing so, it made him the happiest man in the Republic. Did you know dead people could be happy? I mean, it's like, so It's a good read. If anybody wants to read it, you can. So I got to wind it down. I have Bell's report, Captain Robert Bell. He wrote this. It took him a while to write this. I was thinking it was like August too. Yeah, August 29th he wrote it. I, Captain Robert Bell, commanding Company B, and he's saying 21st Cavalry at this point because they're now with them. Do hereby certify on honor George W. Sandoe was one of the first men who enlisted in said company on the 23rd of June last, 1863. Said George W. Sandoe was mustered into service in the United States Company at Gettysburg, Adams County, Pennsylvania by Major G.O. Haller of the United States Infantry. The 26th of June, Early's division of Ewell's Corps under the rebel army under Lee were advancing towards Gettysburg. I was obliged to retire with my company. That's a nice way of saying it. We were scared as hell and we ran like crazy. And he says, I ordered said Sandoe to take a horse and leave. In obedience to my orders, he did so. When near Gettysburg on the Baltimore Pike, he was pursued by 2 of White's rebel cavalry, attacked, shot, and killed immediately by the said rebel. George Sandoe being then and there in the service of the United States. The retreat of the company from Gettysburg, as aforesaid, was in obedience to the order of Major Haller, who was in command of the place. He makes that very clear. I didn't surrender. He made us surrender. Witness my hand at Gettysburg, 29th of August, 1863. The said George W. Sandoe was a private in my company, Captain Robert Bell. So there is his account. Oh, yeah, the fluffy Thaddeus Mann. And I do remember I looked him up when he was, I think he was someone in Pennsylvania. Well, there it says House of Representatives. Oh, his U.S. House, although he scratched that off. So, yeah, Thaddeus Mann. And he called him a sergeant. Wrong. He is not a sergeant. Right there, he says sergeant. Incorrect. So there are some other things he got incorrect here. Big, fluffy speech. So George's monuments are here. George was the first to fall. A lot of historians dispute that. You know, I had his story put in the Civil War Times, and then somebody wrote in there, he was not the first soldier killed at the Battle of Gettysburg. William Rule of Greencastle was the first soldier killed at Gettysburg on June 22nd. Greencastle, that's my point. Thank you very much. There is a monument up there on 11 for William Rule, who was killed June 22nd. So this is when historians define the Pennsylvania campaign. When did the Battle of Gettysburg begin? So I guess it would be better to say he was the second soldier shot in the Pennsylvania campaign. But they all said he was the first to fall at Gettysburg, so I'm sticking with that. George Sandoe was the first to fall. I grew up here not knowing about this guy. And so I think it's important to know our history. And I hope maybe some of you discovered something tonight about somebody that will spur you on and want to motivate you to do a little bit more. I just had a couple of end notes. 2 things again. I just want to tell you 2 quick stories that I'm really proud of. And my mother said, you don't take credit for the things you do, and you better get better at that. So I hear her sometimes. And Anna Smith is coming July 2nd, Anna Debra Smith. She was in the West Wing. Everybody know who I'm talking about? I got a call from Henry Louis Gates. Remember, you know who Skip Gates is? He was the professor that was arrested on his porch after he came home from China. That the police on the campus in which he worked arrested him. And they later because he was black, he couldn't have had a nice house like that in Massachusetts. I think that's where he was from. Obama had him and the cop that arrested him to the White House, and they all drank a beer together after that. This guy, Skip Gates. Betty Baker from the Lynx knows him at Martha's Vineyards and hangs out with him in the summer, was hanging out with him in the summertime. But his staff called me one day, this was in probably 2011 or 12, and said that they saw in my book on Yellow Hill, oh yeah, that's something else I'm supposed to do, plug my book. He saw a reference in here on Basil Biggs, and Anna Smith is related to him. So I was a credit when they told her that she was related to Basil Biggs of Gettysburg, who was a black distinguished gentleman in our community. He was involved in civic organizations. And when she was told about him, her response was, "That's a play." Well, she wrote that play 14 years later, and it's going to be July 2nd at Klein Theater. She wrote a play about Basil Biggs, and she is going to perform that. And I've got tickets, and I hope you'll get a ticket too. One more thing through my book, I just want to say, if you're a researcher, don't keep plugging away and researching. Publish it. Get it out there so ChatGPT can grab it, and everybody can find your work. I got a call in here. There's a reference to John Woods of Manalapan Township, a black man that owned property on Bear Mountain, near where Kitty was kidnapped. And this guy called me. I was on vacation in Florida, and it was Ben Davis from Ohio. He said, "You have this reference in your book on John Woods?" "Yeah, I do. I remember it." "Yep." He said, "Well, he had a brother, Stuart Wesley Woods, who was in the 54th Massachusetts U.S. Colored Troops." This was, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, something like that. And I was like, "You're kidding me." We watched that movie Glory, and we didn't have any men from Adams County in that regiment. "Oh, yeah, you did." Then he told me he was born in Heidlersburg. And I said, "Oh, stop. I live in Heidlersburg." And then he said, "And he's born on September 21st. I'm like, "Now you got me again. That's my mom's birthday." So Stuart Wesley Woods was born where I lived on my mom's birthday in 1840 something. And his mom was Esther Kobe. And Esther, I found her with 3 different men. She's the mother of Stuart Wesley Woods. She married Isaac Woods. He died. Kids were orphaned, placed with different families. And Stuart went to Cumberland County, was educated there, and left somehow and was in Reedville, Massachusetts by March of 1863. So, you know, there was a black man here in Gettysburg, Randolph Johnson, training and recruiting black men to be soldiers. And Governor David Wills wrote to the governor, "We've got a regiment of black men here in Gettysburg ready," because the Emancipation Proclamation said they could fight. And Governor Curtin said, "No, thank you. We don't need help from them yet." But I told this story to John Hauptack. He found 4 more men from Adams County in the 54th. 2 of them were captured and later died from their injuries at Battery Wagner. So when you watch the movie Glory, you know there were men from Adams County in that regiment. And it made it really different when I saw it the other night at the rec park. I was like, just crying a lot. Like, oh my God, how did they do that? Did you see that movie? How did they do that? They knew they were going to die. They absolutely knew it. So these men served. They all served, white, black, brown. And we have a lot to celebrate here on the 250th. And I get a little upset when I see all these racist comments, when I read about something controversial on Facebook, and there's racism rampant in our country right now. If you celebrate the 250th, be a real American and remember all the people that fought for you. They weren't all white. There were black men in all those wars since the Revolution. Some segregated and some not. So now it's time for questions. We've got about 5 minutes for questions. Anybody? And I'm giving all my research on African Americans in Gettysburg to Kevin Levin of Boston, Massachusetts. He's written a book on Henry Shaw, the commander of the 54th. That's coming out soon. He wrote one called Black Confederates. So I don't want to publish any more books. It's a lot of work, and I'm having too much fun playing golf and pickleball and stuff. So any other questions? Anybody need cleared up? Yeah.
I just want to say you're amazing.
Thank you.
You really are
Thank you,
a
Joy.
great speaker. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody with relatives in here that knew about this? I really tried to grab them. I tried on Facebook to try to put the names of these men out to get people in here. It's a tough sell on a summer night, especially as nice as this one is. So I appreciate you all coming in. There are things over on the table. The program coming up again, I'm going to plug it for next month, July 23rd. It's going to be stuff you've never heard before. because I'm the only researcher that has this, but I'm hoping Kevin is going to publish this stuff in his books about kidnappings, about free blacks who were attempts to whisk them away and deprive them of their liberty right here in the boundary of Adams County. So thank you very much for coming in tonight. I appreciate it, and have a good evening.